Hey, what's up, everyone? We're about to talk about all the trades that went down at the trade deadline, so stick around. Good morning, MJT football family. I almost said nation. I would have been mad at myself for that one. Hope everyone's doing great out there. I'm here with Tony Tucker, Joe Morley. Excited to talk about some trade deadline moves. It was an active one this year.
Yeah, it was. And I would have been mad at you if you would have said nation too, because there's only one nation, Mike, and that's the Raider Nation.
Oh, that's why he would have been upset. I was confused as to why anybody would care. You can't be a nation. You can't be a nation and never win anything.
There's a lot of nations that aren't good out there.
Yeah, but not the Raider Nation.
Joker, what's up, Joker?
Yeah, Joker's here. Harrison is already here.
I'm thinking about trading Devontae Adams for Nick Chubb.
Why would you do that?
I don't know, because I don't have an RB2.
Oh, wait, you'll be getting Nick Chubb?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an easy win. You should do that.
I'll be listening while I'm in the shower. Okay, I'll take it, Jordan.
Jordan, soap it up.
Ain't nothing better than taking a shower and listening to some MJT football.
I don't got nothing for that one. I was like, well, who's going to make a joke about the soap? Anyways, we got these graphics for you guys. We got some trades to talk about here. Where should we start? You guys want to go to Minnesota first? This trade to me was wild. The Lions dealt tight end TJ Hawkinson to their division rival. They get a second and a third round pick. The Vikings get Hawkinson, a fourth round pick, and a conditional fourth round pick. I'm not sure what the conditions are that are set for this deal, but I just don't see how the Lions were negotiating this. And the Vikings were getting picks thrown in on top of TJ Hawkinson already.
But this isn't the first time they dealt this year. They did a deal during the draft, which helped the Detroit Lions get Williamson, right?
Yeah.
This is what Detroit traded up, and the Vikings traded all the way back to the end of the first round. So they're dealing with each other. Like, I've always said you don't trade in the division. You never trade in division. But Hawkinson to the to the Vikings is a very good deal because Irv Smith is hurt. He's out for a couple of weeks. And Tony, you can admit right now, how many times did Irv Smith drop balls in big situations for the Vikings this year that were touchdowns? And now you're bringing in Hawkinson. Hawkinson ain't going to drop those.
You would hope not. You said they helped the Lions get a player that's still on IR and hasn't played at all this season, and they're 1-6. What did they actually get helped with in that trade? I don't understand really either of the trades. I do think this helps the Vikings right now because they get a player at a position of need who improves their run game and improves their pass game, which is great for them. The Lions, I feel like they just went in there and Dan Campbell was like, well, I just checked Hawkinson's grit meter and it's a little low. So we should probably move him for future picks that will be made by another administration. That's the conversation that happened in this. I don't think he makes it to the 2024 pick. So there's one pick he's going to get to make potentially next year. But the Lions are in a situation where they're making moves for the future. And I don't think Brad Holmes, I think that's the GM, and Dan Campbell are even going to be looking for the next gritty player to be drafting in potential future drafts. Like, this is all pointing up for the Vikings, which is great. They needed another piece there. It still is just like another person who's kind of underachieved their talent going to the Minnesota Vikings. Like, it seems amazing. Kirk Cousins has all the flashy numbers. Justin Jefferson seems like he should be the next combination of Moss and Rice and whatever. And for whatever reason, the Vikings are just kind of like flatlined. They're yogurt. They're not even a parfait. They don't have all the good stuff in there. It's just vanilla yogurt for the Minnesota Vikings.
Hey, yeah. So can we now say that Hawkinson is the New man on the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, he is.
What is it? What are you guys referencing to?
Oh my
Lizzo.
gosh!
This
Mike.
is
you
we
guys-
are the
No,
old
you
people.
didn't.
We're not supposed to be down with Lizzo.
Lizzo? Who the hell
Yeah.
is
Oh
Lizzo?
my!
She just took a DNA test, Mike.
Oh, yeah. I think I know who you're talking
Oh my
about.
gosh!
Well,
She's
for the-
100% that. Yeah.
For the Lions, I'm confused on what they're doing here. I'm not necessarily confused that they're trading TJ Hawkinson. That makes sense. They're not really using him. He's at a point in his career where he still has some trade value. But they trade him to a division rival. And to me, I don't feel like the Vikings lost out on that much. Like they recuperated one of those picks. Let's say that they're drafting 30th in the 3rd round, and now they just got the Lions' 4th round pick. They moved back 10 picks and got TJ Hawkinson for a 2nd round pick straight up pretty much. I mean, that's a huge win for the Vikings, especially with the situation that they're in right now. They're looking at the NFC. They're looking at the landscape, and they're going, we got a team. We got a roster. This might not be the best team that's ever represented the NFC, but this team has a chance to represent the NFC with how wide open it is. And they go out and they get a guy to fill a hole for them. Irv Smith goes down again. He's been a little bit disappointing already as it is. And now you get a tight end that's really good in the run blocking schemes and really good route runner and receiving weapon down the field for Kirk when they triple up Justin Jefferson outside.
You said that Hawkins still has value, Mike. I think he's on like his 5th year option or going into his 5th year or whatever it is. Like he still has 5 to 6 more solid years in the NFL. Like they got a proven player who's coming off what? A couple weeks ago he had 150 yards and a touchdown or 2. Like this guy can ball in the offense. This is all win for Minnesota. And then you got to hope that they get the picks made. The best pick from this last draft for the Lions, and I get everybody loves Aiden Hutchinson. It's number 2. You shouldn't F that up. Was 6th round undersized middle linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez.
And they already have plenty of 6th round picks to go around. So they don't need any more of those.
I just haven't been able to listen to anything that you said after the Lizzo thing, Mike. You threw me off, but not knowing who Lizzo is. So
I'm sorry. I'm not in tune. I'm an uncultured swine. But here we go. We got the next deal here. The Miami Dolphins get Bradley Chubb in a huge deal, honestly. They send Chase Edmonds, a 1st round pick, and a 4th round pick to Denver, who obviously needs the picks and the running backs after what's gone on in Denver this season. What's your thoughts on this trade, Joe? Your initial reactions?
I think this is a good trade for the Denver Broncos to get a 1st round pick. You need a running back. It's not really going to help you there at the running back position, but to get a 1st round pick for Bradley Chubb, I think you pulled off a great one. And I just got off a TikTok live where people were like, well, Bradley Chubb is an elite player. I go, no, he's not an elite player. He's a good player. But I like Bradley Chubb when he has weapons around him. Like when he had Randy Gregory at the beginning of the season, I thought he was more of a dangerous guy. And they were like, is this the missing piece that the Dolphins needed? No, I don't think so, because I think Bradley Chubb can still get beat out and get blocked. And he's not at that Myles Garrett, Max Crosby level, the Joey Bosa's level. He's not there. He's right below him. He's good. He's a good piece and a good addition. But I think I don't know. I think a 1st round pick was that's a lot to give up for Bradley Chubb, in my opinion. And then to sign him to that big contract afterwards.
When I look at a trade, I love history over mystery. I see the history of Bradley Chubb being a good player and potential in the NFL. I don't want mystery. I don't want some draft pick. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to draft somebody and then allegations are going to come out. He's off my roster, or he comes in. I didn't know that he has an injury history or whatever it is. I already know that Bradley Chubb is a good human being. I know that he can get double-digit sacks in the league. He has potential to be an all-pro. Why wouldn't I want him on my roster? Like, yes, you get a 1st round pick. You have no idea how long it will take anything to manifest for that 1st round pick. And you are about to be paying Russell Wilson all of this money. Like, why not try and keep Bradley Chubb for a couple more years and keep your team in the right direction? The one thing that was working out for the Denver Broncos was defense. And then they went and traded one of the pieces that was making the defense so good. So it doesn't make a ton of sense for the Broncos. like we're not even sure what's going on with the head coach and the quarterback and all the things that are going on there. As for the Dolphins, to me, this is a great move because they needed a second pass rusher. Who did they sign this offseason? Was it Emmanuel Agba? I always mess up his name. I think he's a good player. But if you can put two guys that are kind of at that second tier pass rush, they can form a dominant pass rush situation. We saw that a few years ago with Preston Smith and Zadarian Smith in Green Bay when they were playing together and they were sort of that second tier edge rusher. They formed Voltron and were able to get after the quarterback. So I'm a fan of this for Miami, but I also hate it because I want Miami to just finish at 9-8. So it's a win for them. I want the history over the mystery. That's the point of what I had to say.
So Joe's basically saying he thinks that the Dolphins might have overpaid a little bit for Bradley Chubb. Tony, you're saying, good job, pull the trigger. You don't want to take a chance that you just draft a bust as an edge rusher with that first-round pick. I think it's the perfect in-between. I think this is one of those rare trades where both teams are going to look back on it and go, hey, I think that worked out. The Broncos can draft some help on the offensive line. They can draft some help in the receiver core. Whatever they're going to do with that draft pick, they need a couple things. So just let's stockpile some picks and let's get someone else in here. We are good at edge rusher. We got Browning. We got Randy Gregory. We feel good about it. For the Dolphins, they're in a situation where it seems like their defense is like right on the cusp of taking that next leap, but they just can't quite do it because the pass rush and the pressure without blitzing has not been there for them. And Bradley Chubb is obviously going to help that. So I think it's a win for both sides. For both sides. It comes down to, can Bradley Chubb stay healthy to me more than anything else?
Way to sit on the fence on this one, Mike. Way to not pick a side. Well, I think both sides won the trade. Get out of here.
I'm coming around.
We have Harrison Hope that is in here. He's Harrison Hope, and we have Harrison Witz. That's two Harrisons now. But Bradley Chubb will be huge for the Dolphins D, though they need a pass rusher. And it is correct because the Dolphins have 15 total sacks as a unit this year. Most of them coming from their linebackers or their I think Holland has two sacks right now, so their safeties are getting sacked
from the blitz.
So, I mean, I can see that late in the game, maybe Bradley Chubb when they're up because their offense is amazing, right? Their offense has been doing their job. So when you get that lead, maybe having Bradley Chubb just pin his ears back and go is going to be a great thing. But I don't know. I don't know. I've been having that conversation with myself for a while about which one would I rather be. If I was an NFL GM right now, do I like the draft picks or do I like the players? And it's going back and forth, and we're seeing both ways. But I'm still with the draft pick. I'm still with the number one draft pick, Tony. That's why I'm against this trade.
I like the draft picks if I think I'm going to be there next year to make them. Some of these GMs are like, oh, we need draft picks. For what? For you to be the fourth analyst on a Fox broadcast next year? The Bradley Chubb thing too. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a mood. Technology really bent me over a barrel this morning. I think this about Bradley Chubb. We are evaluating this guy on coming back off of an injury. Like pre-injury, we all thought very highly of Bradley Chubb. Last year, he wasn't so great or whatever it was. Like he needs a little bit of time to get back, and he's looked really good this year. So I think that this is great for the Dolphins. Go short term. Think about that success that you could have over this amount of time. That's all.
So any Chubb on D is good.
Any Chubb on D is good, yeah.
Chubbs are good as long as they're welcomed.
Defenses with Chubbs on them and in them and around them.
None of us are going to take this joke to where it needs to go, so let's keep going.
Let's just keep it moving, keep it pushing. We got another deal here. Chase Claypool dealt from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Chicago Bears. The Bears give up a second-round pick for Chase Claypool. I'm interested to see what you guys think in the Chase Claypool trade to Chicago because I think that the general opinion is that the Bears overpaid. But I actually kind of like the deal a little bit. What's your thoughts, Joe?
How did they overpay for a top 3 wide receiver in the league? Chase Claypool came out and said he was a top 3 wide receiver in the league, and you got him for a second-round pick. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, I like the deal. Do I think they overpaid a little bit? Yeah, especially when you look at all the other deals that we'll get into later. A second-round pick, but Justin Fields in that offense has been getting better and better each week. We see them hanging in there. Their one problem is wide receiver position. You have Darryl Mooney, and then you have a bunch of people that were working at Walmart last week. So you bring in Chase Claypool. You overpaid a little bit for him, but if you look at the upcoming free agent market, there's not a lot of good wide receivers on that market. You got to hit the draft. Some people will say maybe you get a better pick in the second round, but we don't know. Where the wide receiver position has been good in the last couple of drafts, but you get a guy now, you put him in the system now, and you got what do we got? 8 more or 10 more weeks to work with him, or a little, I don't know, 9 more weeks to get him in that system, get him ready to go with Justin Fields. So I like what they're doing. They're not giving up on the season like a lot of people thought the Bears should, and the Bears are hanging in there. And maybe you overpaid for him, but I like it. You're giving your rookie or your young quarterback, not rookie quarterback, but your second-year quarterback hope and telling him, like, hey, we're doing something that Green Bay doesn't do. We're bringing you a wide receiver.
Yes. I don't think that Claypool was the right fit to go to Green Bay. I've heard a lot of people say, why didn't they pull the trigger on him and whatever else? It does. I don't see Claypool fitting in there where he's going to gain the trust of Aaron Rodgers. What Aaron Rodgers needs doesn't exist. Okay. Because it does exist. It's in Las Vegas. It's Devontae Adams. It's somebody that he can have timing and is one of the smartest players on the field and understands if I'm even, it's coming back shoulder. If I got a step, it's going over the top, or Claypool's not going to be that guy to come in midseason and earn that sort of trust. So everybody who's like, why didn't the Packers pull this trade? It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have made him that much better. However, I think this is a great trade for the Chicago Bears. You're going to use a first or second round pick likely on a wide receiver next year anyways. So why not bring in somebody that we've already seen have success, has the kind of skill set for what you want to do. Imagine all of the different ways that you can get out there. Equanimeous St. Brown is a solid NFL body wide receiver, right? So if you can do a stack set with Equanimeous, Claypool, and then throw the quick screen behind to somebody who's fast and can move like Darnell Mooney, now all of a sudden you have a little something going there. Claypool also can go down the field. He does the end arounds. He'll help a little bit out in the run game. And you have to be able to fairly evaluate Justin Fields as a passer. I do think that the Bears should move more towards the Lamar Jackson and what the Ravens are doing, right? But then we have all this stuff where it's like, what's the one concern everybody has with the Ravens right now? Is that they don't have any wide receivers. So if the idea is that Lamar Jackson is there and they're doing this thing, but he doesn't have wide receivers, then why would we want Justin Fields to be in the same way trying to evaluate him? Oh, they're going to run the football, but when it's time to throw, he doesn't have enough down the field playmakers. Because you're not gonna find Justin Fields in a rhythm and timing. You don't want Deontay Johnson in this case because it's going to be more about timing. Although Deontay Johnson every week makes some fucking crazy catches. He's amazing. But you don't want somebody like that is built on timing and getting open because Fields isn't there. You want somebody that's going to go get a 50-50 ball, a deep throw from Justin Fields, which is the strength. Claypool can do that. Darnell Mooney can do that. Now you have two guys. And like I said in the preseason, don't draft Cole Kmet because the Bears are going to make a mid-season acquisition that will make Cole Kmet even more irrelevant than he was before. Don't draft Cole Kmet. I've been saying it all year, guys.
With your team that has Cole Kmet on it hanging behind you?
Well, I mean, whatever. Shut up, dude.
Do you think this makes him more irrelevant, or does this help Cole Kmet?
No. Nothing can help Cole Kmet.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. There ain't nothing helping Cole Kmet. My initial reaction was Chase Claypool, second-round pick. That's kind of crazy. But then I took a step back and looked at the circumstances. What do the Bears need? What are the Bears looking for right now? They're looking for that big body receiver like you're saying, Tony. And then more news comes out that the Green Bay Packers were heavily involved in trying to acquire Chase Claypool. So to go in here and say, you know what? We will pay just a little bit more. We will go with our second-round pick, which is higher than the Packers' second-round pick, to acquire this guy and get him for our quarterback and keep him away from their quarterbacks. I like it. At the end of the day, I think the Bears did a good job on this deal, and they used some of the draft capital that they acquired in some of these other deals that we're about to talk about. So it's not even like they spent their own draft capital. I think this is their pick, but they have more second-round picks acquired via other trades like this one. Oh, this was a fourth-round pick. But edge Robert Quinn was traded from the Bears to the Eagles. Eagles loading up that defense. The Bears get a 4th-round pick in return for the veteran pass rusher. I believe he's like 34 or 35 now. He wasn't going to draw a high draft pick, but the Bears got something out of this deal. We're going to talk about CMC, don't you worry. What do you guys think about this deal that sends Robert Quinn to Philly, Joe?
I like it more of a leadership aspect than Robert Quinn's still a great player, good player, and the 4th-round pick is good value for him. I think in the Bears, because the Bears, they're not going nowhere this year. You're not going to re-sign Robert Quinn at the end of the year. You get what you can for him. For the Eagles, I think it's a good one because they bring in a guy to work with some of these younger guys that they have on defense that's been on winning teams before. And they used it last night, and I just read it right now where Sirianni came out and he goes, "We need to get Robert Quinn more involved in the rotation." It's only been like 3 or 4 days. Like you had a game right away. Like you can get him. You have 10 days to get him involved. And the Eagles defense is a very good, solid defense this year, right? I think it's the number 3 fantasy defense because I have them. Thank you very much. But they are beatable. And if you watch some of these games, and I was telling somebody go back and watch the Arizona game. I saw it last night a little bit in the Texans game where they get beat on these outside screens, outside wide receiver tosses, like the 1 or 2 yard passes. And as a defensive end, I think he'll be able to read some of that and be able to get out there a little bit more. So I think Robert Quinn adds a little veteran leadership and knowledge to that Eagles defense that they might be lacking.
Okay, Mike, this is a trade where both sides win because this is when where Robert Quinn is at in his career, you had what you needed him for. He came in and was able to mentor, hopefully, some of the young guys that they drafted, like Dominique Robinson, who I think is going to be a solid edge rusher at some point. You were able to get 3-4 months of just tutelage from a veteran player and then also move him along for your future. Now that opens up more snaps for guys that you really need to take a look at to find out if they can be contributors in Eberflus's defense. Because, like Joe said, the Bears really aren't going to win games. And you said something in our last topic, Mike, where you said that the Packers pick is going to be worse than the Bears pick. I'm not so sure about that anymore. But the win for the Eagles on this, if I had to give one side the edge, I would say that it goes towards the Eagles for this one thing. The year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they had like 7 defensive linemen. They were rotating out, and that's what made that average team better when it came playoff time, is because when things slowed down, they could rotate out where they had like Chris Long coming in to fill in for Brandon Ingram. Now Brandon Ingram can take a few more plays off. If they need him in the run game, they can bring in somebody on 3rd down who's fresh, who can go chase down the quarterback, or vice versa. Then you still have Hassan Reddick. And I'm blanking on the other guy they have over there, Josh Sweat. Like, they have a lot of these players. They will have 8 defensive linemen that they can all rotate. And we saw Hargrave continue to take steps last night in that, where it's like, yes, they're without Jordan Davis for about 4 to 6 weeks or whatever, but when they get everybody healthy, that defensive line could be what brings them to the Super Bowl. It's not necessarily how crazy that offense is. It'll be the fact that nobody can do anything. So if I had to give an edge to the trade, it's because I know what Robert Quinn will bring come playoff time. I don't know what they're doing with that 4th-round pick. Maybe it's packaged to move up and get a player that is a game changer for the Bears. There was one last thing I wanted to say about Chase Claypool. We moved too early. Claypool has to do one thing for himself and mature drastically. I read a few reports where it was like they wanted to get him. He was not good. He was immature, locker room stuff or whatever. If he wants to get these big paydays like other wide receivers, he needs to understand some weeks I might only get 2 targets in a game, but we win the game. I made a couple of big blocks. I'm a good team first guy. I think that could get Chase Claypool a big contract with the Bears. Not huge A.J. Brown money, but it could get him huge money. He's got to mature a little bit.
Yeah, he's a little bit of that Juju Smith-Schuster that we saw in Pittsburgh, where he's just being a little showboaty on social media and not realizing that it does affect the game and it does affect what's going on when you're worried about, your celebration instead of, getting to the line again, or you're worried about your dance in the locker room instead of whatever it is you need to be worried about in the locker room. I think that's a big deal, especially going to Chicago now where there is less veteran leadership for him to lean on and look towards for guidance. And about the Robert Quinn trade, I think the biggest thing for the Eagles is like you said, acquiring that depth and getting ready for the playoffs. Because last night you saw it. Fletcher Cox went down. It looked a little scary at first. He got back out there. It was completely fine. But that little moment gives you a gasp. But it don't give you a gasp when you got the depth that the Eagles have, when you got Brandon Graham, when you got Hargrave, when you got Davis, when you got Robert Quinn, all ready to come in and rotate and fill in where they need a man when they need a man. And that's the biggest thing for the Eagles. I don't know what's going to stop this Philadelphia team. When you look at their schedule, it's the division rivals, and the rest of the team seems like the Eagles should win those games. This might be interesting down the stretch of the year if they can go undefeated. There's a chance. There is a chance.
Everything's coming up Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's always sunny in Philadelphia, and I'm sure that it's sunny right now in Baltimore because they just got themselves another all-pro linebacker. Yay, congratulations. The Bears are receiving linebacker A.J. Klein, a second-round pick, a fifth-round pick. The Ravens are getting Roquan Smith. Joe, what's your opinion on this trade? The Ravens clearly value linebacker more than any other franchise in the entire NFL.
It's a great trade. It's a great trade for Baltimore. You get one, if not the best cover linebacker in the NFL, in Roquan Smith. He's still young enough. You got to sign him to an extension, which I think they've been able to do. And what have I always told you about my thoughts on the Ravens, Mike, is their team is not carried by Lamar Jackson, even though he is great or a good quarterback. It's carried by their defense, and they've always built their franchise on their defense, and they add another corner piece to this defense. And you gave up a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick. To them, that's nothing, right? That's nothing. They have a lot of young guys coming back. They have young guys on that defense. And they've blown every game that they've lost this year. They've blown leads. I think this is a great pickup for them moving forward the rest of the season.
This is such an L for the Bears to me. It just drives me insane. You go back, the identity of a team that plays in the windy city, cold weather, what you need. You have a defensive head coach. The history of that position, from Butkus to Singletary to Urlacher to Lance Briggs to all these players, and you get Roquan Smith, you hit on him, and you have Eberflus. This was a match made in heaven, and I have never understood why there has to be some medical thing or whatever, because Roquan Smith seems like an amazing guy. He said all the right things at the podium. He seemed to want to be a Chicago Bear. Why was this deal never made? For the other side, for the Ravens, they get it. We know our history of Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs and what has us hanging a couple of Super Bowl trophies in our building. Let's go get this guy that is going to be insanely tough and just an anchor to the middle of this defense, and maybe allows somebody like Queen to play a little bit more freely and do the things he needs to do, because you do have somebody like Roquan that is just going to be an absolute stud for this defense. So this is a huge win for the Ravens. Another team. I'm sick of it. I don't want it to happen. I don't want good things to happen for the Dolphins and the Ravens and these other teams that are going to knock the Chargers out of the playoffs this year. I don't want to see it. I'm tired of this shit.
Yeah, it seems like it just continues to trend a different direction for us Chargers fans, Tony. And speaking of Tony, we're about to talk about Tony next. Anyways, Roquan Smith to the Ravens. I don't think I really have much to add on that you guys didn't already say. It matches the history for the Ravens. It matches what they want to do defensively. We're going to see that tested in the first game because Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen get to see Alvin Kamara this week on Monday Night Football. I'm excited to see that matchup, just to see the new linebackers and how they're meshing together when it comes to covering and stopping Alvin Kamara between the tackles, which can be tough. What are you doing over there, Joe? What's going on? Yeah.
I think it's
I was telling you before the show that my dog was expecting, my wife went to go pick up a new puppy today, and she's supposed to be coming home. So I could hear that they just walked in. And my dog is locked in my room, and she is about to go crazy because
she's
going to find out that she's going to have a new roommate. And so I was trying to get her reaction so the kids could see that she knows, because she's been acting weird for the last 24 hours, knowing that they were going to bring a puppy home. So,
Yeah, of course she did. She knows there's an affair about to happen, and she can't do anything about it. And she's like, "What's up with this?"
I'm very glad that my Roquan Smith talk will be a part of that family memory for the rest of your life, Joe.
Roquan Swift, you're right.
My Roquan Swift talk. You ready to go to the next one, or you got more?
This wanted to weigh in on the fantasy thing. Go after Amari Cooper. It's too touchy with what's going on with Keenan and the Chargers and everything else.
Roquan Swift, Harrison's favorite player.
Blurpy. Go. Yeah. I don't know how you say his name.
Well, let's get through this because I'm afraid my dog's going to get crazy pretty soon.
Okay, let's get through this. Yeah, this trade happened also, guys. Joe, what do you think about Kadarious Toney? Don't care, right?
I don't. I think New York did good. That's good. That's good. I mean, he was a first-round pick, but Kadarious Toney did great in spurts last year. But he's injury prone. After the trade, he came out and like people were making fun of him. And he was like, "Oh, they made him sound like Willy Wonka." You know how he came out all hurt like Johnny Depp, and then he like rolled around. And once he found out he was going to the Chiefs, like I don't want that kind of guy I don't want that kind of attitude on my team. And that's what Brian Dable is doing in New York for some reason. He's weeding these guys out that don't want to. That they're only here. That seem like they're only here for winning or paychecks. No, you got it. Like Tony was saying about Claypool having to mature. Same thing with Kadarious. It's like you're going to go to this team, but Andy Reid ain't going to put up with your bullshit either. I think it's great for New York when they find out that hey, this guy wasn't going to work out. He's not our kind of guy. Get rid of him. Let's see what we can get. And for the Chiefs, does it hurt the Chiefs? No, because they already have a bunch of weapons. Now, if it works out for them, amazing for them. They get another weapon. But if it doesn't, just like the Josh Gordon, when they brought Josh Gordon and it didn't work out, we tried it. But if it works out for the Chiefs, it's good. But right now, I think this is a win for the New York Giants just to get somebody like him off the team.
Health is the concern for Kadarious Toney. I don't know why it seems like he's always injured, or maybe this year it's been more, just Brian Dable doesn't like him, so he's not putting him on the field. I hate this trade because I am a Chargers fan, and I know that Kadarious Toney could be an amazing piece for Andy Reid to be utilizing on a weekly basis. Like, just the few glimpses of what we saw with him with Daniel Jones, now imagine that with Patrick Mahomes. Get out of here. And the fact that you still are going to have to pay attention to Travis Kelce and how they use their backside of the backfield, and then they have speed all around him. Like, this drives me absolutely nuts because the Giants, they go, oh, well, we don't have any wide receivers. Then put Toney on the field and just feed him the ball and be like, all right, prove it. Show us you're this guy. And for whatever reason, he never got along. Like, there should have been zero competition. Galladay's not competition. Sterling Shepard gets injured early. What is he competing with Darius Slayton? He shouldn't be. By the previous administration there, they used like a first-round pick on him. So I'm not sure what happened. I think this is a massive win for the Chiefs to be getting rid of picks that probably won't even play. Sky Moore was using the second round. He can't even get on the field in this offense. And now they're going to bring in somebody who could be as dynamic as Kadarious Toney. And I don't think that there's a better offensive mind in football than Andy Reid. And now he gets this player that is absolutely incredible. It drives me nuts. It freaking makes my head explode. It's like getting Tyreek Hill. Like he shows up and he's like, hey, I have this guy who can do things that other people can't do, and I'm going to find ways to exploit it every single week.
Yeah, that's what it feels like the Chiefs are paying for here, is that potential, that high ceiling that Kadarious Toney could be similar to Tyreek Hill guy for them. And that's a tall task, a tall order. I've been saying that to everybody. That when are we going to realize that Tyreek Hill is one of one? But when you talk about a skill set, Kadarious Toney has more of a skill set to replace Tyreek Hill than MVS and Sky Moore have combined, it seems like. So this is a scary move for the Chiefs as a Chargers fan as well. And it's a high reward, low risk. they only risk a 3rd and a 6th round pick that they probably won't really need in the future. And their potential reward is a wide receiver 1 on a team-friendly deal for a couple of seasons while Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce can ride this thing into Kelce's mid-30s. I mean, when is Kelce going to slow down? Now you get this wide receiver outside to help him even more. So I think it's a W for the Chiefs. The Giants had to trade him. They were kind of handcuffed. I wish some other teams would have driven up the price maybe a little bit. It would have been nice, but it didn't seem like that was going to happen.
Yeah, there's a reason why he went in the first round beyond Joe Judge and whoever was the GM before being incompetent. Like he was on the radar of many people. You know, I mean, I guess this doesn't help my argument much, but Urban Meyer said that's why he picked Travis Etienne, because he wanted somebody who had that explosive home run style skill set. And that is who he wanted Kadarious Toney, and settled for Travis Etienne. Yeah. And now Etienne is showing his crazy abilities, just like Toney showed his immense ability last year. I hate it.
And the more we lean into passing, the more we lean into that explosion, those big plays being the huge massive parts of offenses that are now going to Super Bowls, the more and more we see guys like Kadarious Toney, like Travis Etienne, that are kind of jack of all trades, maybe not these giant monstrous wide receivers anymore, but they can do it all. And that's what teams want. And some teams are lacking right now that could use some of that juice. Anyways, on to the next deal here. Second to last one. I have a graphic for it, and then I had the list. I'll just go over all of them really quickly. But Calvin Ridley got dealt. This one's kind of going under the radar a little bit because Calvin Ridley is still suspended for the gambling issue that he had last season. But Calvin Ridley, a former 1,400-yard receiver in the league within the last couple of years, still in his prime years as a wide receiver, goes to Jacksonville to team up with Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, and company. It's a 2nd to 6th round conditional. I think there's a bunch of steps that have to happen for this to become a 2nd, a bunch of steps that have to happen if it's a 6th, and it could be anywhere in between based on what Calvin Ridley does when he does hit the field and when he hits the field. But, Joe, thoughts on Calvin Ridley to the Jaguars? I know you're not super in on Trevor Lawrence yet, but this has got to help him, right, a little bit for the future.
This is a great move. You're bringing in a good wide receiver for basically nothing. Like Atlanta's like, hey, we just got to move this guy. And it brings up a great point of free Calvin Ridley, like, and showing how bullshit that suspension was, that he was out there. He should be back on the field. He should be back, but to go on there and just like, hey, like I didn't even think about Calvin Ridley at the trade deadline, and then I saw this and I'm like, Jacksonville, it's pretty sneaky, dude. Like to go in there and be like, hey, how about we take this guy who's not even going to play for you, and we give you some bull crap for it. I think it's a great move for Jacksonville, and if he comes back and you pair him up with Christian Kirk, it's a win-win for Jacksonville, because even if he doesn't come back, they don't lose much. Was that the 6th round pick, if that? And if he comes back, and if you end up giving up the 2nd round pick, if everything works out, that means something went incredibly right. So it's a win-win for Jacksonville.
That's all I'll say. They kind of want that to happen, Joe. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're looking at like the scope of wide receivers that were dealt. If Calvin Ridley was available and playing and not suspended, he would be the best wide receiver dealt and on the trade market by a wide margin, better than Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, and then you look at it and you go, you got Calvin Ridley for a 2nd, and the Bears got Chase Claypool for a 2nd. I think Calvin Ridley all day over Chase.
So Ridley situation going here is interesting because I'm kind of curious as to how far the NFL is going to drag this thing out, right? Because it's the indefinite suspension. And so there's 2 conditional picks. One is conditioned on when he makes it back, right? When is the suspension over? That's for next year. The following year, it's if they sign him to a long-term deal, then Atlanta actually can get another decent draft pick out of this. So the haul is pretty good depending on how things shake out. I would say this is a huge win for the Jaguars because this allows them to focus on the positions that they need to take the next step, which is the secondary and the offensive line. because they spent a lot on defense this year. Aluakon's been a little disappointing, but Devin Lloyd's played really nice. I think we've seen some nice moments out of Trayvon Walker. You still have Josh Allen there. So the front of the Jacksonville Jaguars is really nice, and you can load that up with more depth in the later rounds of the draft. But getting some sort of a corner in free agency or drafting really high at that position and maybe finding yourself tackles and stuff like that, maybe signing a big-time center that can communicate well with Trevor Lawrence. But this also makes the Christian Kirk signing a little bit more valuable because you're not asking him to shoulder that crazy load. You're bringing in first-round talent, a guy that we think is a solid number one. I wouldn't say Calvin Ridley is an elite number one, but I would say he's right there as like sort of that 12 to 15 range of number one wide receivers. Like if I was going to go through and list them all, he'd be somewhere in that, probably closer to 15 to 17 now that I'm thinking about it, but still really good. So I like this trade a lot for Jacksonville.
And him and Christian Kirk will be a great wide receiver duo. There's going to be no excuses, no issues there. Another thing with the Jaguars that they need to focus on purely, other than the offensive line, like you pointed out, and some help in the secondary, is just Trevor Lawrence just needs to improve. And getting him weapons like this is going to help him improve. Just working with Calvin Ridley throughout the offseason is going to help Trevor Lawrence improve a ton because he's got to get better. The Jaguars team is right there. They're losing games at the end of games. They're not losing these games in the first three quarters. They're keeping up with just about every opponent that they line up against this year. And at the end of the game, there's a costly turnover, the defense doesn't hold up, or something goes wrong, and they fall. And they got another test this weekend against the Raiders. So we'll see how they do against that offense defensively. And we'll see if Trevor Lawrence can go blow for blow.
Easy money.
What am I saying?
Come on, T.
What am I saying? Final trade. That way we can see the new puppy over there in Joe's house right now. Christian McCaffrey. We all saw this trade go down: a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, a fifth-round pick from the 49ers to the Panthers, and the 49ers get Christian McCaffrey. I think that this deal has a lot to do with Christian McCaffrey's health on who won or lost this trade. But Joe, early on, Christian looks good. Are you liking this deal for the Niners?
No. I already told you, I will never, ever give the Niners any ounce of credit for anything they do. When they made this trade, I understand how great Christian McCaffrey is. I understand everything he can do. And he went out there and he went for the triple, the cycle in football the other day. He threw a pass, ran for a pass, caught a pass, all touchdowns. Good for him. And I understand how great he is. But the Niners' issue wasn't running back, and I don't understand why you keep adding running backs to this. Do I think this was the missing piece for the 49ers, like I said earlier, for the Dolphins? No, because you still have Jimmy G calling your stuff. You still have a defense, which is a solid defense, but they're not quite there. There's still a younger secondary that's been proven to be beaten. And I just think they could have used these draft picks elsewhere. And it's showing, the Niners' history of trading draft picks hasn't been good. If he stays healthy, good for him. It will get them to the playoffs, but I don't think this was the Super Bowl missing piece.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the history that I want to look at on this one is the recent 2 years of injury history for CMC. All it takes is 1 4-week gap because of a hamstring injury or whatever, and now all of a sudden the trade just looks really foolish. The reason I like this trade for the Panthers is because you weren't going to win, but now this job is a lot more enticing with that many picks for whoever the next administration is. And I think that is like, hey, I'm more interested in the Carolina job, even though there's less to work with on the offensive side. But that just gives me the opportunity to draft the players that I want, that I'm going to be able to come in and have a lot of capital to start off the new regime in the NFC South, which is wide open for the next couple of years. Who's going to establish the long-term quarterback? And I think that the Panthers already have some defense. So I like this pick. I like this package for as much as they got for the Panthers, because anything less than winning a Super Bowl for the 49ers, this is not a great trade for them. Because I look at who they're going to be drafting. Next year, they're going to be running out Trey Lance, who I think will be good, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure. I haven't seen it yet be great. So, like, I guess it's a good trade for the 49ers, but I would rather be on the Panthers side of this.
And here's the thing that Niner fans tell me. They go, oh, yeah, we overpaid, but the Rams were going to get him, so we had to get him. Okay, let the Rams do it. Let the Rams go do it. Let them ruin their future even more. We're seeing how that future of trading draft picks and saying F those picks. Yeah, I got you a Super Bowl, but Christian McCaffrey on the Rams wouldn't have done shit this year either. So if that's the reason for overpaying, that's a dumb reason.
There's more retirement talk, too, from Sean McVay. Like, the report that came out, I forget who it was, but they just said, like, hey, when this crop of guys is done, he's likely done. What does that even mean? Does that mean you're not developing loyalty in players that are going to come up after Donald and Ramsey? You're just going to one day look out there on the field and be like, yeah, these guys don't got it anymore. Well, I think I'm going to go do TV for $25 million a year. Like, what does that mean? When we can't afford to buy anybody else or the cupboard of picks is completely bare, yeah, I'm going to retire and do something else. Thanks, McVay. Love playing for that guy.
I'll let you get your thoughts on CMC, Mike, and then I got something to say about the Panthers.
Oh yeah. I'm with you guys for the most part on the deal. You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was about to open my take up with, this is a Super Bowl or you busted this pick in this trade and losing all those picks for the 49ers. And that's why it worked out for the Rams. They already won their damn Super Bowl. That's why it made sense for them to throw all their picks in the garbage and probably establishing that the Rams are going to have a dark age in the next 5 years of just terrible football because they can't improve at all without any draft picks. But they sacrificed it for that Super Bowl, and it made sense when you look at it in hindsight that they won that Super Bowl. If they didn't win that Super Bowl, they would look like fools right now. They would look absolutely ridiculous losing all these games with all this talent and not seeing any way to improve towards the future. So the 49ers have to win a Super Bowl. Does Christian McCaffrey help their chances of winning the Super Bowl? Hell yes, it does. It 100% does. But he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay on the field. And they need things to break their way because the NFC is not no walk in the park because the Vikings and the Eagles have established that they are contenders in this as well, along with the 49ers and the teams that were already in the mix. So we'll see. We'll see this works out, San Fran. It's Super Bowl or nothing.
And that's what I said, Mike. It was a desperate move from an organization that feels that they should have been winning Super Bowls. They should have won one 2 years ago. They didn't get it done. So it's a desperate move to get there. And I don't know. Maybe Shanahan and John Lynch thought they were on the hot seat, but I don't think they are. But it just felt like a desperate move at this time. And then to go on and move Jeff Wilson right after it, and like Tony talked about, like you traded Jeff Wilson, who's been doing good for you, and Christian McCaffrey doesn't have the greatest history the last 2 years to stay on that field. So it's kind of interesting to me. Do you got anything else to say about CMC, Tony? Because I want to move on to the Panthers real quick.
I guess, like, I think Elijah Mitchell helps lighten the load for CMC, and that might allow him to stay healthier. But you have to get over the hump with Jimmy G, and that's still the major concern. Yeah,
there's concerns there for sure. And I think that the Panthers need to take a step back and now realize the position they're in. They're in a similar spot that the Miami Dolphins were about 3 or 4 years ago. They need to cash in, and they need to turn this shit around with these picks. They're going to have 8 picks in these 4 rounds now.
Okay, so Carolina had the opportunity not only to make the CMC trade, but for the Brian Burns talk has been coming out, that people were offering multiple first-round picks, 2 to 3 first-round picks for him. And Carolina didn't do it. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, is that a great move that they didn't make? But then I'm also like, no, I would take the draft picks and get rid of the player now, let the new regime do it. Because I've heard the Rams offered 2 first-round picks and Cam Akers for him. Would you have done that deal, Tony? Is that a deal that should have been done in this offseason?
Signed. Bye, Brian. We appreciate all the hard work that you've done. But I'm taking 2 first-round picks for whoever I plan on giving this franchise to. Because Brian Burns is still a great piece. Like I said, the defense is the one side that makes this team attractive. But if Brian Burns isn't there, and now all of a sudden you have 3 first-round picks, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, if I'm coming in, I'm sitting down with the GM and I'm saying, all right, this is who we're going to target. This is it coming out in this draft class. We're going to trade up to go replace him with Anderson from Alabama in the first round. We're going to make sure we get him. We're also going to be able to target this quarterback. We're going to get CJ Stroud or the guy that we love so much or whatever. Or I have a good relationship with Ryan Tannehill or Derek Carr. We're going to bring this quarterback here who's going to run my system enough to be like, I would have everything, whatever my plan is laid out, you have all these picks to go and do it. Oh, I thought that said IV.
Yeah,
LV.
100%. And if you trade Brian Burns, you still have Jeremy Chin. You still have J.C. Horn. You still have DJ Moore. There's some pieces there to start the rebuild off with.
Yeah, didn't they draft the left tackle, Aquanu, who struggled a little bit?
Aquanu also. They've got guys to build
nice.
around. They need guys in positions like the QB position, obviously, but it's not like the Panthers are – I think the Texans are in a much worse spot than the Panthers. Right?
And I think Terrace Marshall Jr., for what it's worth, is a good football player.
And about time they let him shine.
He was one of my favorite players in that draft last year, and I was like, this kid's going to be able to ball. And then they just have quarterback issues. And now all of a sudden, PJ Walker gets to start 2 games, and he's big, and he's fast, and he helps create a little bit of opportunities for everybody in that offense. So I'm not thinking that the Panthers are that far away from winning this division, right? Like a veteran quarterback and a couple of the right rookie plugins, free agent signings in the offseason, you're there.
I wouldn't say they're a quarterback away because last team that said that.
Not a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. I'm not like an insane person, like I live at the top of a mountain and smoke weed all day. I'm talking about being relevant because that's kind of what they are not right now.
Yeah.
I like it. Sean Payton to the Panthers. Welcome.
I don't know, Mike.
The water's really cold. Some of the other deals, Bills traded for Naheem Hines. They send Zach Moss and a 6th-round pick. Dolphins get Jeff Wilson, like we were talking about earlier, for a 5th-round pick. The Commanders traded William Jackson to the Steelers for a 6th and 7th-round pick. Or maybe there's a Steelers 7th-round pick involved. I'm not sure, but William Jackson is a Steeler. Jets get James Robinson to replace Breece Hall for the meantime. The Cowboys acquired Jonathan Hankins to help out the depth on their defensive line from the Raiders for a 7th and a 6th. Joe, you probably know that one more than me. Deion Jones. This one kind of went under the radar as well. He's had a rough couple years, especially injury-wise. He's a Cleveland Brown now, sent from Atlanta to the Browns. And the Kansas City Chiefs traded Rashad Fenton, one of their corners, who's probably going to be the cornerback 1 in Atlanta with how bad their secondary is. But the Falcons get some corner help at midseason from the Chiefs. Anything out of those deals you guys want to talk about?
I'll go 2 minutes real quick. The Fenton deal, will start from the end there. Great move by the Chiefs again. Like we have these young guys. We want to see them play. Let's get them on the field because they haven't even had McDuffie out there. So let's get them reps on a team that is going to be playing meaningful games rather than having somebody that's there. We'll add more capital since we sent some out to get Kadarious Toney. Congratulations, Chiefs continue to win. I hate everything. I thought that I lost track on one of those moves. Oh, the Willie Jackson move to the Steelers, right? That feels like a very good Steelers move because I just think he was improperly used in Washington. But he was the number 1 CB in free agency, and I just think the way he was being used or asked to do certain things, it wasn't working out. I think Tomlin will maximize him, and that's going to help the Steelers secondary. Maybe not for many, many years. He's a little bit older, but I think it'll be fine. Lastly, Naheem Hines going to the Buffalo Bills is exactly what they need. They're not going to commit to running the ball inside the goal line. They don't need Zach Moss. They're just going to let Josh Allen bash his giant body in there. But you can get somebody like Hines in there who's a good pass catcher. Now all of a sudden you can check down to him or whatever. He's good in the pass coverage. I thought that was an excellent move by the Bills for really nothing because they're not going to play Zach Moss. Yeah. And it does take away a little bit from James Cook. But the problem with James Cook is that you don't want to be trusting that rookie in the biggest games of your season. You want to be able to be like, hey, on 3rd and 7, we have Nyheim Hines back here who's going to make the proper read on the blitz if we need to, or he's going to realize, hey, I don't have anybody. I'm going to leak out into space and catch a ball and go for 22 yards. Like, it's just such a good fit for what they want to do. They don't need a downhill runner like Zach Moss. They need somebody like Nyheim Hines. I thought it was a very smart move by them.
And it feels like if they were looking at that CMC price and they were going, it's a little bit too much for a running back that can do similar things to what we can get with Nyheim Hines for Zach Moss and a conditional 6th round pick.
Yeah, you know, we always like I'll compare things to the generic version of something. Nyheim Hines is like the rec league player compared to CMC. Like CMC plays in the NFL, but like this guy plays flag football in the Santa Clarita Valley League, not too far from my house. Like that's the difference here. But you got Nyheim Hines for a player and a 7th round pick or whatever, as opposed to the other way around. So I just love the deal.
4 picks. Yeah, I think that's good for the Bills. Anything on the lack of deals for our teams? I mean, I know the Raiders traded Hankins out, but like I feel like the Chargers may have benefited from, a William Jackson acquisition potentially.
Yeah, especially for what the Steelers gave up. Like, what they give up, like a 5th or 6th round or something for him.
They got a 6th round pick. They got William Jackson and a 6th round pick in 2024 for a 7th round pick in 2025. What the fuck? This doesn't make sense.
It was like
William Jackson and a 6th round pick to the Steelers. Oh, I see.
And they got a pick back.
Yeah. They got a pick back. They got a 7th back for the 6th that they spent on him. So nothing.
So,
which is great for them. Yeah, when I look around the teams that didn't do anything, it doesn't say that they're not trying, right, or they're not whatever, but it just doesn't make sense for where they're at. And I think a lot of teams like the Chargers or the Raiders who kind of stood pat, I think they understand that this might not be their year for whatever reasons, injuries or things haven't come together, but yet they know, they feel confident enough that they're going to be here next year and they want their draft picks. They want to continue to install people into their systems as opposed to panicking, thinking, oh, we're really close. Like, I think the Chargers finally sat down and said, yeah, we could make some deals and we could move some picks, but we are down our left tackle. And we are down our pass rusher for at least a couple more weeks. And we're down 2 wide receivers. Like, is one of these guys that we're going to spend a bunch of draft capital on going to allow us to compete with the Chiefs and the Bills? Like, let's just shoot our shot, play the best football we can play, and we'll be 9-8, 8-9, and not make the playoffs. And on nuts and bolts at 5:00, you will hear me pick the Atlanta Falcons to win the football game tonight.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I like what the Raiders GM said. Dave Ziegler came out and he goes, the price sometimes at the trade deadline is higher than what it should be and what you want to pay. He goes, some of these guys that you could have gotten in the offseason are now going for higher picks and higher value because more teams are involved in it. And it's better just to sit back and watch. And it's true. Like, why not? If like Tony said, your team's not doing what you thought they were going to do, why go out there and force a move when you can just wait till the offseason and then think about it again and restart back up? So, yeah, I think the value went up on a lot of these guys during the trade deadline, and they were just like, nah, we'll wait. We'll wait a little bit.
If you're the Packers, would have you spent whatever the Texans want on Brandon Cooks?
No. I wouldn't. I don't think
a second-round pick for him, and I don't think I would have gave that up for Cooks.
There's not a player out there that is going to come in and gain the trust of Aaron Rodgers. That's just not how it works. So the player doesn't exist. That's what I keep saying to everybody who says, because the GM of the Packers knows that I draft guys. He's been with Amari Rodgers for 2 years, who was a good player in college football, who Aaron Rodgers won't even look at when he's on the field in the slot. Why would I want to waste draft picks on a player that might come here and he's not even going to use them? He wants veteran guys that can't stay healthy. Sammy Watkins, and unfortunately, Randall Cobb got hurt again.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna work.
I think that's all the talk. I think we covered everything there. Every trade, every team that could have traded, and everything in between. for the trade deadline. That's a wrap. Anything to add, Joe, Tony, before we sign off?
I just like an active trade deadline, so it was great to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. It was interesting. There were some trades I didn't even know went through, and you guys are sending them to me, and I'm like, what the hell? He went? Who did what? I didn't even know Chase Edmonds was involved in that deal to back to the Broncos. If I'm Melvin Gordon, I'm like, what the hell, man? What am I doing here? What's going on?
Don't trade me in that deal.
Yeah. Melvin Gordon is going to end up being like the RB2 on the Seahawks next year and having like a resurgence and running for like 600 yards behind Kenny Walker.
That was a pretty specific prediction, so that comes true.
And then one last thing. We had a Raider fan that said he wanted the Raiders to trade for J.C. Horn during the deadline. I don't think the Panthers would have done a deal for J.C. Horn, but there is a guy that I really like that's on the free agent market that just got released. It's Sidney Jones as a cornerback. Maybe the Chargers would be interested in him, but I hope the Raiders bring him in as well.
We would be interested in him. I heard we are interested in him. Just
other than that, I got to go.
All right. We will catch you guys later on today. We're doing our Pick'ems live stream in about an hour. So come on back to the channel. We'll see you guys there. Have a good one until then.